Hi, my name is Tom SCARDA, and I was recently interviewed about my franchise experience, and I wanted to share it with you. So check this out. I used to work for the New York City subway, and for 13 years, I loved what I did, being a cog moving, 5 million people a day. And after a while, I realized I wasn't really filling my creative side, and I really wanted to do something more. And I looked at my bosses, who were great, and they were mentors to me, but they weren't living the lifestyle I wanted to live. But I realized business owners were. And I decided I want to be a business owner. And what I did is, in the transit, I moved into management, and they were asking me to make these reports and do all these crazy things I know nobody was reading or looking at. And they were, telling me I can't go on vacation and what I could do, what I can't do. And I wanted to take control. And I realized that if I was a business owner, I could take control. But I didn't know anything about business. I was a government worker. I knew a franchise would help me. A franchise is a business with training wheels. They hold your hand from the time you start talking to them to buy the franchise all the way to when you sell your franchise. And that's what I needed. I needed that support. I needed that help. And I was looking at a franchise that I visited, which was an ice cream place. I love this thing. And on the internet, I found a franchise consultant. And I spoke with her, and she helped me realize that ice cream thing was not going to be the thing for me. It was way out of my price range. And she ended up matching me to a smoothie franchise. And I bought it. I built that franchise into 3 units. And I was blessed enough. In 4.5 years, I sold the whole thing, and I semi-retired at 41 years old. And I don't say that like to brag, I say that because I was just a government worker, but I found a really good franchise that fit my personality, and I just followed the system, and it was successful, or now it's history, as they say. So after I sold my franchise, I was high on the horse. I figured, wow, I could do this again. And my wife had her eye on a franchise. And I said, hey, I don't need to talk to anybody about this. Let's just buy this franchise and be successful. And it was in a new kind of concept where you make food and bring it home and cook it at a later time. It was a really great thing for a working mom, and that's why my wife loved it so much. And we bought in. And I figured, hey, I could do this, even though it was a brand new franchise, brand new industry. They created this industry. Within 18 months, we were out of business. Lost a ton of money, but the good news is I learned more from that failure than I did from the success that I had. And now I'm on a mission to help people not make the mistakes I made and look at the right reasons to buy a franchise, and don't become infatuated with a business model, but really get into something that's going to work for your lifestyle, for your family, for your community, and not just do it because it sounds like a good idea. So the consulting agency that matched me to the smoothie franchise saw how successful I was, and after they found out that I sold the franchise, they asked me to come on board and help people do what I've done. And since 2005, I've helped over 1,000 people figure out if franchising is for them or not. When you start looking at a franchise, you realize that there's a lot of questions. And so there's the obvious questions that people ask, but I help people understand the questions that they should be asking. So it's a different dynamic. And I help people figure out whether franchising is right for them or not, because it's not for everybody. So I always share with people, if you work with me, one of 3 things will definitely happen. One is you'll figure out that franchising is not for you. And that's okay. That's a good thing, actually. The second thing is, I might see some red flags that might preclude you from wanting to move ahead. It may not be the right thing for you. And if I see anything like that, with your permission, I would let you know, and we would figure out where we go from there. And the third thing that can happen is I might find the perfect franchise, and you decide to buy it, make the investment, build it, and live happily ever after. That would be awesome. Owning a franchise is the ultimate freedom. Now, there's a lot of people that get into the wrong franchise and they don't do that well. And you hear those stories, and there's failures out there, don't get me wrong. But if you get into the right thing, it allows you to not only help yourself and your family, but you're adding jobs to the community. You're helping people with whatever service you're providing, whatever product it is. And you could change your whole entire financial life and build a giant empire if you wanted to do that. Some people just want to have one unit and just love what they do, and that's fine. But it's the ability to step into something that's a blueprint, where you just follow that blueprint, and nothing's guaranteed, but it's the closest you could get to a guaranteed success. There's nothing easy out there. Let me get that straight. There's, there's work to be done in that franchise. But it's your baby. I know for me, in my smoothie franchise, I worked nights and weekends, but it was my baby. I loved it. So it was never really work. So you can't go down the road of feeling like you want to get involved with something that's a hobby, because your hobby will kind of run you bankrupt. You got to find something that will allow you to do your hobby, give you all the money and the time in the world, so you could live and be happy with your life and not work to live, but live to work. In my smoothie franchise, the one thing is that it was very attractive to kids, and it was healthy. So it made me very happy that I was serving something healthy to children. But we had this thing with this franchise where you would put an umbrella in every drink, and the kids' faces would light up, and they would love it. And that would make me really, really happy, making somebody happy. So the best way to reach me is by email. So you could contact me at tom@tomscarda.com or tom@thefranchiseacademy.com. And I offer a free 30-minute consultation, no obligation. Just, you could ask me questions and figure out for yourself if you really wanted to go to the next step with me or not. No obligation. In my smoothie franchise, it was a special event type of concept. So I had an outdoor amphitheater where there were summer concerts. So I got to go backstage and meet rock stars, which is something I never would have thought of when I was working in the subway. But it was fantastic. Just owning a franchise makes you a real member of the community, because you're very involved with, the soccer team and the Little League, and you sponsor things that are really important in the community. So you become a real fabric of the community. And that's something that I didn't expect, that I ended up really, really loving about being a franchise owner. I'm excited about franchising because it was so successful for me. And it was so successful for a lot of people that I know. I also know of a lot of people that chose the wrong franchise. So that turned into like a mission for me, because I know that people buy franchises for the wrong reasons. I did. My second franchise was for the wrong reason. So I have this passion and this mission to help people not make those mistakes I already made. So it's important to really ask the questions that you probably don't even know to ask. And that's what I'm here to help people do. One of the things that my clients are most surprised about is that there's more than 3,500 franchises that span 90 different industries. 89 of those industries have nothing to do with food. Food is always top of mind. You know, when I first started looking at franchises, I started with food. It was the dessert category. But you could do things that you would never imagine could be done within a franchise. 1 out of every 12 businesses in America is a franchise. And it accounts for 10% of the gross national product in America. Comes through franchising. It's a really powerful industry. So a lot of successes have been made through franchising that you would never even think about. But as far as categories in franchising goes, you could be in hair cutting, you could be in, of course there's food, but you could be in nail salons, you could be in tanning, you could be in dog grooming, automotive, hotels. I mean, the list is unbelievable. The key thing is, though, to figure out what franchise is a good franchise. They're not all good. That's the problem. And once you find a good franchise, which is the best concept for you and your family and your community, and that's kind of what I help people figure out is number 1, should they buy a franchise? And 2, which would be the best one for them? Typically, people that come to me they fall into a few different categories. So people that talk to me are usually frustrated with their job and they want to make a change. They're laid off and they realize that there's no loyalty in corporate America anymore. And they want to take control of their own career. Other people I talk to just are not making enough money. They want to diversify their income and they want to keep their job and build something on the side. And I help people do that as well. But it's really a second career for most people. So, you know, I help a lot of millennials look at franchising, but the bulk of people that are buying franchises these days are well into their 50s. That surprises a lot of people. But at that age, you're too young to retire, but you don't want to go get a job and start a career over again. So sometimes a franchise idea is a great way to spring into kind of a second thing, or for some people a 4th and 5th thing. But it's really a way of not starting from scratch. Most businesses that start from scratch have a really hard time making it, and even the Small Business Administration tells you that 95% of businesses that start today will be out of business in a year. But in franchising, in many franchise industries, 86% of the people that started a franchise 5 years ago are still the same owners of that franchise. The franchise usually handles that, but I speak to my clients for years and years. I want to hear the good stuff. I want to hear the bad stuff. I want to find out, any things are not going well with a specific concept, because if things are kind of shaky at that time in that franchise, I don't want to recommend that franchise. So we pre-screen all the franchises that we work with. So, it's not just, hey, we'll pay you a commission if you give us a franchise, send us a franchise lead. We're very careful about who we work with. And that's really important for the growth of the franchise company and for our clients, for our candidates. Yeah, so the franchises that I work with are really ones that are concerned about long-term growth. So they're paying people like me to make sure people are properly screened. I match people based on the top performing candidate profile of their franchisees. So they could look at their whether there's 25 franchisees or 1,000, they could look at their top 10% and say, where did they come from? What's their background? I want more of those guys, Tom. Go find me those guys. And that's how I do a lot of the matching. A lot of people, one myth I hear about franchising all the time is that it costs $1 million to get started. And that's true in certain franchises, but there's many franchises that you could start for, $50,000 and still make a really good living at. So I always say to my candidates, we could look at franchises that cost $1 million and you'll make 200 or 300,000 as a profit, or we could look at franchises that are 100,000 and your profit is 100,000. The thing is, the lower cost franchises are typically service-based franchises, and you operate them out of a home office or like an executive office. And a lot of times they're not very sexy. So you're not owning a bar and grill. You're not inviting your friends over to the hottest new concept to have drinks with you. It's a business that people need, which is a good thing. A lot of them turn into really recession-resistant franchises, things that people need. But you don't think about them. And that's kind of where I come in, is to bring people's focus on and open up their horizon to businesses that they probably would have never thought about in a million years. I'm seriously passionate about sharing all this information with people, because people think like, oh, there's a line there. It must be a great franchise. And it might be a great franchise, but it might be a really bad franchise agreement where you make pennies on the dollar. And you wouldn't really know that unless you know what you're looking for. So you really need to really speak to somebody. I mean, why would you make a $100,000 investment or a $1 million investment without getting advice from a professional? You know, one thing that I like to share with people is I'm a certified franchise executive, and I got that designation by going through 3 years of classes with the International Franchise Association. There's only a handful of us in the whole world that are actually certified, and I am one of those certified franchise executives. There's certain franchises that are very regionally driven, and like examples of that are businesses that are catered to a certain cuisine of that area. Philly cheesesteaks. You could probably do them well in Vancouver, but I don't know if people in Vancouver are crazy about Philly cheesesteaks. It's just an experience that I had personally was in the food franchise I was in. The franchisor said fish tacos are the rage. I found out that fish tacos are not the rage in New York, and I got stuck with a lot of fish and had to throw it all out. A lot. And so sometimes it is regional, but if there's some things that are just everybody does it. Hair cutting is a great example. People need brakes and mufflers. Even if you lease your car, you might need brakes. There's so many franchise concepts that cater to things that people need every day and not want. That's a really big deal.